We have had an incredible start to the new season of factory tours, having already covered 2 stunning builds, and today we're returning with another gorgeous 700-hour build from Zorg. But before we get into this, I'd love to continue this series up until Satisfactory's 1.0 release, whenever that may be. So if you do have a gorgeous save yourself that you'd love to submit, make sure to join my Discord and submit your save in the factory tour applications. The link is in the description below. Now, returning to this save, there's a huge amount to take in, from the bird's eye design of the builds to the individual intricate builds dotting around the world, connected by a dedicated railway spine starting from the rocky desert and reaching outwards across to the grassy fields and the blue crater. I am truly a sucker for great railway designs, and this build certainly has that and a whole lot more. But the best place to start is no doubt at the hub, located on the Golden Coast, taking center stage between the bauxite drone ports here. Now, one thing that's apparent with this build is how densely packed this whole build is, and it's one of the few that I've come across that does this so well. Another factory tour that comes to mind that's similar to this is Buildoramas. I'll put a link to that card in the description below as well. What I love about Zorg's build here is that given the amount of time we've had to play around with Lumen, the build feels like it's designed with Lumen in mind from the get-go, from the neon cyan veins that are prominent throughout the build to the dedicated lights for highlighting certain elements that you see throughout. There's also a beautiful contrast between these lit up areas and the hive city vibe where small slits of daylight seep through to the floors below. It feels ever so mysterious, and it's beautiful. And this is actually one of my favorite reasons for making builds like this. With little or no dedicated roofing, it offers ample opportunity for random beams of light to shoot through the complex, allowing for this beautiful contrast of light and shadow, something which is rarely seen on builds where lighting is at the forefront of the design. It just feels so much more natural this way. And speaking of design, Zorg's factories are well thought out, but shy away from the standard factory designs of smooth outlined shapes for facilities. Zorg plays with this to their strengths, with jagged juts of walls sticking out like teeth, blended with heatsink fan designs and robust supports. This selection of decor assets blend really well together, especially given the verticality of this factory being easily spread across 5 floors. This particular factory produces pretty much everything from the basics to thermal propulsion rockets and nuclear pasta. There's just so much to take in, and we'll return to this later, but let's for now have a look at the logistics of running a factory like this. But before we do, make sure to hit the like button if you think Zorg's done a great job, and let me know what elements you'll be stealing for your factories come 1.0, if there are any. Now, Zorg's main factory is fed by 3 modes of transport. There are capillaries of conveyors reaching outwards, sucking the minerals from the land via these braced buses. Zorg also uses a large quantity of drones for resource transportation, and you'll find their reports regularly assorted amongst the factory's outer struts. The third mode of transport that we have for logistics are trains. These drop the resources at stations located in the lower floors of the factory. I'm loving the spine design which wraps itself around the map where the train line follows. It's also great to see the use of multiple stories for this. Personally, I normally opt for a single line, but by having multiple stories of train lines, you can reduce the slowdown of trains by running less trains on a given track. And let's face it, it looks pretty cool as well. Now, the trains lead to several different factories. We have the nuclear facility located nearby Zorg's main base. This facility produces enough nuclear fuel rods to run 56 nuclear power plants, with the waste being turned into plutonium rods and recycled. Now, I'd love to spend more time viewing this particular factory, but unfortunately it absolutely tanks my FPS, as you can see here. But it is a beautiful sight to behold, with the trains entering under the main facility. Again, I'm fascinated by the use of multiple levels and Zorg's discipline to build factories without being tempted to wall off every section and cover it all up, instead opting to blend the facility's decor with the production buildables. And it looks fantastic, let's face it. Now, recouping some of our frames, we're going to head to the Rocky Desert facility. This facility is much smaller, but still has plenty to talk about when it comes to the design. Interestingly, the train system is push-pull, in fact all of them are, which actually serves the design pretty well because it allows the construction of these dedicated freight docks, which act as a perfect focus point for your factory's designs. I really like the idea here of the pipes being used as supports for the sign, and the refinery design is both simple and elegant. Zorg also makes great use of materials, blending coated floors with concrete. It's also great to see the facility being built around the existing train lines, and I love being able to see the trains run through the facility. Further along, we also have a dedicated train station collecting the rest of the available resources to be sent back to the nuclear facility. It looks like there are plans to expand on this, and it intrigues me as to how the push-pull system will run with extra trains on the line. But we'll have to wait and see for that one. Next, let's head to the Blue Crater Lake. This facility is connected to the main network via another train line, and I have to say the rail junctions really tickle my fancy. This facility is dedicated to the production of turbo fuel via the alternate diluted blender fuel, and I particularly like the blender diluted fuel section as it's built into the cliffside, blending the factory nicely into the nature, and something that I personally struggle with a lot. Now, the dedicated elevator pillars also look fantastic, and the overall shape of the walls in front of the refineries above are particularly nice because it makes the refinery look like a different building altogether. It's a simple idea, but one that is pulled off perfectly, and something I'd love to use in my future builds to hide the ridiculous amount of refineries that are needed in the late game. The turbo fuel facility speaks for itself as well, but I love the attention to the supports beneath the build and how it disapparates behind all the layers of fog as we slowly zoom out. Before I finish this off though, we do need to return via the large waterfall, where particular attention has been made to the development of a dam. The facility and decor are pretty simple compared to the rest of the factories, but I love the grates as well as the delicate touch of colour just above them. There's also a lot of different wall designs in use which greatly complement one another, and the hulking bulwark-like walls reaching down the sides of the cliff, which I feel demand a chef's kiss. It's beautiful. Finally, I wanted to return back to the main facility. I'm really delighted by everything this save has to offer. It's a great example of exploring facility architecture and working within the dense confines of a multitude of factory lines. It's a very different style of build to me, and one that I can see myself playing around with for 1.0. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I love how the production buildables are all beautifully blended together to make the few buildables we have feel less monotonous, and making this facility feel much more like a custom designed factory. On the whole, it's a great build with plenty of moments to take in, and one that I know Ada would be proud to call her home.
That is correct, Pioneer.
But thanks does go to Zorg for sharing this, and again, if you would like to show off your factory, do submit it in my Discord factory tour application section. The link is in the description below. I'm really excited to see what I can learn from your builds. But of course, none of this would be possible without the amazing support from our patrons, most notably our solar eclipse patron Firefless, as well as our lunars the Calamity, Ben and Star, and our blood moon of the day, which today is Papa Snoozy. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.